You're listening to the Blacktop Banter Podcast, the premier podcast in the asphalt industry, made for contractors with contractors.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Blacktop Banter. If I've seen you at a conference or at one of our events, I really appreciate you stopping by and saying hi. And as always, we're looking to expand our network, and I reached out to this fella who keeps popping up on my news feed and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook a lot over these winter months. And I was hoping that he would come on and share a story with us, kind of the come up. And here he is today, Skyler Garman, owner at ProSeal Asphalt Maintenance. Skyler is always growing as an entrepreneur, from having multiple businesses, working for himself while working full-time jobs, to applying himself in school with a very advanced tech ed department. He had multiple scholarships for tech ed as he declined to pursue his path as self-employed and getting many certifications in many construction trades, to founding a very successful health and wellness business with an exit, and now he is current owner of ProSeal. How you doing, my friend?
What's up, brother? How are you? Hey, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. You know, we mix it up quite a bit around here. NASCAR drivers, former Navy SEALs, NFL players, but we always find our way back to our roots, and that's the asphalt community owners that make it up, man. So I'm glad you're here to keep us grounded, my friend. Yeah. So I want to pop in, and everyone loves the origin story. I kind of, went over it a little bit with your intro there, but tell us about Skyler Garman and how he goes from Skyler Garman, the teenager and young man, to Skyler Garman, the owner of ProSeal.
Yeah, so I think it all started at a young age, really. Like, I realized that I wanted more. I've always been like the hustler, right? The same entrepreneurial story of like shoveling driveways, mowing grass, doing whatever I could to make some money. And then typically I kept like a full-time job, and I was doing these things on the side, and I got around like a little bit of an older generation. I started in the gym at 13, and the guy that like owned the gym owned some real estate, and like he kind of took me under his wing and was like, hey man, come work for me. He owned a landscape company, and like I started like realizing this life that he was unfolding. So I contribute, some of those early years to that, and I just wanted more. So I applied myself in school. I was really big in the technical education department, as I described. Like, I actually did have a slight exit from school to career. I had a position at Cartech, right, for 3 months. I had a scholarship there. It's a huge industrial facility around us. They manufacture some of the world's like most prestigious metals.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the word.
You're typical. You're like me, bro. I was all tech ed, no less on the English department for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, let me work with my hands. Yeah, not my brain. Give me my hands.
Yeah, it was my saving grace, honestly. Like through school, it's what kept me engaged. But yeah, I mean, they make like the Winchester barrels for like the rifles and
cool.
Airplane parts, all that type of stuff. So super. So I was there for a while, and it was a great transition. I was out of school, $45 an hour right out of school with $17K a year to go to school. And I was there, and I remember there was this pivotal moment when I was there that all these guys were in the break room. They're all making good money, and we were working 7 days a week, swing shift. So every sixth day into the seventh day was a double, and only the people with seniority, got to work that 5 or 6 day week.
Yep.
And all these guys are sitting in the break room, and they're talking about just what they're going to spend their money on. And I'm sitting there as a young kid, and I'm like, there's nothing outside of these walls for these guys. Like, it's just this paycheck, and how can I spend this money? And it was like a Friday evening, and I was like, yep, see ya, I quit, bye. I literally pretty much quit right there on the spot. I was like, hey, this isn't for me. I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm out of here. So I left. My job, my family told me I'm nuts. They're like, you have a good job, people would kill to make money like this. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but just not for me. I knew I wanted more. And then I sat at home for a little bit. And then I moved to New York City. My dad was Local 7 construction, tile, marble, terrazzo. This is where the epoxy side comes in. So my dad's been in epoxy and resinous floors his whole life, 42 years. And I was like, hey, I just need something to get me by for a little bit. I don't want to be working 7 days a week. I want to work about 5. I want to stack some cash and figure out what I want to do with my life. So I moved to New York City. I learned a lot about life. I'm from Pennsylvania, very large, very fast-paced city where I'm typically around nothing but farmland and, country boys. I've learned learned a lot about life when I moved there. But yeah, so I joined Local 7 Union. I worked there for a little bit. I saved up 15 grand and I did the same thing. Finally, I was like, hey, I got 15 grand. I at least have some cash to like make a run of something. And I quit and I came back home and I was like, what is it that I really want to do? And there's one thing that never left me. As I described, at 13, I got into the gym and I fell in love with it. I grew up as a wrestler, so that's kind of what started me in the gym. Yep. And then I just fell in love with bodybuilding. So I went and started a supplement store. I was like 18, 19 at this point.
Okay.
Still started a supplement store, and when I tell you, like, I spent every dollar I had, that $15,000, I signed a lease, I got all the supplements that I could afford. I had like maybe 2 of everything, 400 square foot shop, like, I'm telling you, grassroots. I had 64 cents opening day in my account.
Doggy. Yeah, that's a fun
64
run.
64 cents. Like, I was just like, and it was the first thing though that everybody was like, I don't know, kid, like, you love this, you might as well just make a run for it. Typically everybody's just been like, they've second guessed me, but kind of in this manner, they were like, I don't know, just make a run for it. You'll learn.
You're young. Yeah, you're young. Send it.
64 cents opening day. We had a great day, and I don't know what we did that day. Like, I think if I look back, it was like $7,000 or something.
Damn. So, okay.
Yeah, it was great. So it was like literally kind of took off really well. From there, 400 square foot shop turned into a 6,000 square foot building that was across the street in 6 months. So okay. I just kind of knew the market, and I already took all the products and did all the things, and I knew what I wanted and what help I desired. I'd go to the local stores and you go and ask them questions, and they were clueless. So I just like my true passion behind everything was offer every customer with education and support. That's how I did it, right? You could come in my door and I could tell you just about any single vitamin, supplement, anything there was because I loved it. Where you'd go into a typical store, they'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, they say this one's good. Or
that's exactly what they say, dude. That's exactly what they say. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know. Like, I'm coming here because I don't know. Yep. And I can tell you don't even know. Yep. You're here because he's like, yeah, bro, like people like that one. And I'm like, okay. Why? Yes. Why do they like it?
I got deep into the science, and I was like, no, like, this is how this works. This is why I think you should take this one. This is how I think this will work with you. This is why, like, the pumps come in here because there's some nitric oxide or beta-alanine or blah, 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 all down the line, and just offered education with every customer. And this was in-store and online. So before you bought any product, you basically had access to me, and it wasn't like a computer-generated response. I was answering and helping every client I served.
Right.
So I, go and grow into the 6,000 square foot. The back half, I opened a gym, and I just opened like a raw bodybuilder. Like, it was just a warehouse that I gutted and got lights and power in it and just, hustled, went to Philly, went to Maryland. Yeah, went to Philly, went to Maryland, went to Jersey. I'm just buying piece of equipment, like every $500 or $1,000 I saved up, I'm like, okay, there's another piece of equipment. I threw it back in the gym. Okay, there's another piece of equipment, threw it back in the gym. And I just built this like really cool, like raw, hardcore.
So you had subs in the front and weights in the back.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, it was my dream, and it just happened to serve me. It was great, right? So I got to work out all day whenever I wanted. I'd hop in the back when I wasn't in the store and work out and do that type of thing, and then offer education to clients.
Wow.
From there, I had a partner then, a big industry name. We partnered together. We created a sup line, and that did well.
So you did the gym and the sup solo, and then when you created a sup line, you took on a partner, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, keep going.
So, started a sup line. That did well. Partnerships are always a fun thing. So, he was on one side of like, hey, this is great. I'm doing this and I'm going crazy. And, he's very involved with a lot of other things and people and whatever. And it was just a mess, right? And I was like, yeah, but like, we need to like renovate the gym. We need to own a 10,000 square foot gym. We need to do this. We need to do that. And he's like, yeah, bro, I'm flying helicopters, in a new penthouse lease. And I'm like, no. So
Yep.
I finally decided. I was like, hey, like this is great and I love this, but this is not what I see my life being. Um,
Yeah.
and I just wasn't like at that point, I'm so visionary, right? It's so hard for me to live in the present. Most
Yeah.
people would have lived in the present of that moment and been like, wow, I get to be in this gym every day. I got to, be in a sub
Yep.
store. I do whatever I want.
Making
Like,
money.
yeah,
Yep.
money's good. Like, and this is great. And I'm going to hold on to this for as long as possible. And I looked at it. I was like, no, like 5 years, 10 years, like what happens tomorrow? Because in the supplement industry, it's this all day long. Like you
Yeah.
hit and then you can miss. And when you
Okay.
miss, you're holding everything, right? Like you have 40,000 units sitting in your warehouse or whatever it is. And the supplement industry is so changing. If you would think about the last 10 infomercials, right? Beetroot powder, greens,
Oh,
uh,
for sure.
you know what I mean? Like,
For
and it's
sure.
it's always chasing the trend. And I
Yep.
like it was so great, but it was so taxing because when the trend doesn't hit, you miss and you miss big. And,
Yeah, or it
and you
dies
miss
and
two or three times, like you're in a really bad situation.
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
wanted
which
something.
stinks, right? Because like once you think you have it figured out, like keto. Now keto's starting to fall off, and it was keto everything for a minute. I
Yep.
was like, well, shoot, well, what is next? What's the next thing? Before
Yep.
that was superfruit, right?
Yep.
Like, dude, it's superfruit everything, and
Yep.
it's just I was like, dude, it's you're a victim to the marketing trend. You know what I mean? Even if
Yeah.
it works or doesn't work. I was just thinking about it today. I'm gonna do keto again. I'm on keto right now, and I was having coffee this morning, and I was like, you know what I need? Monk fruit. Yeah, monk fruit's the sweetener. And then I'm like, dude, why do I think that right now? Yeah, it's because of marketing that got in my brain before. I'm
Yep.
like, dude, why the hell do I know monk fruit and why am I saying monk fruit? But
Yep.
yeah, it's you're right. I can see that being from the outside looking in, it's susceptible to that stuff.
Yeah, and to me, it was stress, and then especially with the partner, right? And this is where asphalt was born, honestly.
Okay,
Like this,
that's what
this
I
is
was gonna ask. Like, I
this
want
is
to
genuine.
know how you ever got into seal coating and then into asphalt side.
Yeah, this is how asphalt was born. So I seen all this, and honestly, like I tell this story all the time, and I laugh about it. So at this point in time, I'm like, man, what can I do that like I can just make some money? And I looked around my town, and
Yeah,
I seen these guys that were doing asphalt maintenance, and I'm like, this guy is not too much of a stand-up guy. He's pretty shady, but he's driving a new Corvette. He's driving a new Harley Davidson. Like, I was like, what's he doing, right? So I see these guys. I'm like, they all seem to have nice things.
hmm,
And I was like, they're doing asphalt.
yep,
And I was like, but they just seem a little shady why they're doing this. So I like started thinking of this vision. I was like, what if I took the shadiness away from asphalt and I just did what they're doing, right? And I was like, what if I just wore a uniform, right? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Logoed something up. I didn't drive a rusted out truck. I drove a nice brand new truck. Like,
yeah.
and it started as literally like a running joke. Like I had a group chat with like five of my friends,
Yep.
and I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna buy like a trailer unit and I'm gonna just, waste 20, 30 grand. Like, and I don't want to say waste because if I would have made money, it wouldn't have been a waste. But it was like,
All right.
if I blow 20, 30 grand and it goes absolutely nowhere,
Oh well.
it was like, it sounded like a fun idea when I said it, right?
Right.
So I text my friends and my buddy's like, no, 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 don't do it. Like, he's like, I know somebody. I'm like, know somebody what? He's like, he's got trucks and, and I'm like, I don't care. I just want to like kind of go do this on the side, and if I can make 5,000 a weekend or something, like I'm cool, and maybe it'll grow into
Yeah.
something. And he's like, "No, I'm telling you, bro. Just don't even think about it. Just talk to the guy." And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, he might be willing to sell the business." I'm like, "Bro, like I'm not trying to buy a business right now." And he's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 like talk to him. I was like, whatever. So I entertained it out of just like politeness of like, my friend was so convinced that I needed to talk to this guy and whatever. So we go to dinner and, we sit down and he's telling me all about this stuff. And I'm literally like kind of sitting there like, oh, cool. Yeah, whatever. Kind of like rolling my eyes. Like I could kind of care less. And it wasn't like a disrespectful thing that I didn't care about his story. It was just like,
Yeah.
I just wasn't ready to commit to that. Like this was just like an idea I dreamt 2 days ago, that
Yeah.
I'm not trying to buy a business. So like we just happened to go to dinner at a place that was like a couple blocks from his shop.
Okay.
And we have dinner and he's like, why don't you come back to my shop? And I'm like, oh man, like I kind of got to go. And he's like, just come back and look for a second. All right. So I go back to his shop and I walk in and I'm like, man, you kind of have this started. You kind of have some logos on some trucks. You kind of have a little bit of professionalism. Like he had professionalism. He just couldn't get out of his own way was his problem.
Yeah.
He was a Marine and he was very like, I have to do everything. I'm the best. I'm this. And like, which was what made him so great at being really good at what he did, but it didn't make him a great business owner.
I got you.
And, you know, it was him and 2 high school kids, and he painted every single job. He was on every single job. He, like, his wife ran the office. Like, there was no real, like, systems and anything to it. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting. I was like, you kind of got the start of what I want. And I was like, that would, like, eliminate a lot of this groundwork. But, you know, I just don't know if I'm ready to commit to this. So, long story short, we end up talking, and he's like, look, come work for me for 6 months, learn the business, and, you know, I'm going to go to Florida. Like, his gig is every year he worked his ass off for 6 months and then went to Florida for 6 months and sat on the beach and did nothing. He wanted to drive a brand new truck every year, wanted to drive his Porsche that he owned, and, like, that was it. You know, like, he soaked every ounce of cash out of the business. He wanted to work really hard and do nothing for 6 months after that.
Okay.
And so he's like, just come work for me and learn this and see if you even like it. And this is like when I was like, now like I started getting interested of like, okay, maybe this business purchase might make sense. So 6 months or so, I worked for him like a season in our area. Yep. And I ended up buying the business, right? I worked $14 an hour as like a intern learning the business. And I was working like 80, 100-hour weeks. Like he was abusing that setup. Typically, when you buy a business, the owner works for you the following year of acquisition, right? For like $30 an hour, and he helps you get the business started. But he was like, "No, you're going to be my slave for 6 months, and I'm going to pay you $14 an hour because you want to buy this business." And I was like, "Whatever, bro." So yeah, we ended up buying the business, and that was where it all started.
How long was he on? How long did he stay there after you bought it?
0.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I kind of figured that much.
6 months of me, $14 an hour, and
quote unquote training. Yeah,
quote unquote training. And he went to Florida and disappeared and never came back. It actually happened like 7 weeks early. So the business purchase was supposed to happen January 1st. Yeah. And the last like 7 weeks so it was really only like 5 months of training, because the last like 7-ish weeks of the business season, he was so mentally checked out because he's seen the exit.
He knew the finish line was there.
Yeah, like he was just pissed, like every day showing up like angry, and I'm like,
hated it.
Yeah,
dude,
I'm like, you're making the business worse at this point, dude. And he's like, just going, and I'm like, hey, look, like, I know we agreed to buy the business at this. But what is it going to take you to leave now? Like, because this is just not working. Like, and literally to this day, I still like super close friend of mine, super good dude. Like, I love John dearly, but it was just like at that point, I'm like, I'm getting $14 an hour. I'm like 100 hours a week. This is not working. Like, I am not doing this, and you're like just being an ass at this point. Like,
so it worked out then. At that point, you both knew, like, hey, dude, I want it, and he's like, I don't want it, and he was able to work out. I was just like, what is it? What's the number?
Like, I'll pay you extra now. What is it to get you out of here now? So like he exited like 7 weeks early. I ran the business that 7 weeks. I went into winter, and then January 1st was the purchase.
How long ago was that, Skyler?
That was 3 years now. 4 years. 3 years we bought it. 4 years would have been the season before. Yeah.
But if your track record speaks for it at all, you have a tendency of balls out, sky's the limit, as it happened with the gym. You're still a young man. How old are you?
I'm 24. I'll be 25 in March.
Yeah. So you're still in the F it all out mode, which is awesome to see because you're crushing it there. But what's it look like since you purchased it to now as far as growth and whatnot?
Yeah, so every year was 50% at least cool. Year over year. Like I said, the original like operation was the owner, his wife, and 2 high school kids. It can be, now I have a full-time office admin. I recruited out of an employment agency, and before that he started multiple successful businesses that he had exited. So he came from HR and staffing for the past 7 years. So I Charles, he's my office admin. He was there for 7 years. I pulled him out of that position. He was there ready to coast to retirement. He's 55, and he was like, "Hey man, I got a really, really cushy job right now. I really enjoy what I do." But he's like, "I really see the vision of what you're saying, and I just believe that you are in this very aggressive mode, and that excites me because I kind of enjoy this type of stuff, and I'm willing to come along for the ride, and I hope you take care of me." So he came over, and now he's a full-time employee. He runs everything in the back end of my office. Super instrumental because I
was gonna say that takes a lot of weight off of you.
Yeah, and I am very all out, like you say, right? I'm
for sure. I've seen it
all day long, and he's very collective and professional, and I can be like, "Hey, blah, 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 do this," and he's the guy that's going to put it in graphs and charts and present me the data. And that's
visionary integrator relationship, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's our big focus right now, right? Is everything has a system and a process and a person, and everything has a KPI, and the dashboard is getting built, right? Yeah. My biggest focus in the business currently is a dashboard. I need to understand every metric of my business on a reportable that is getting delivered to me.
Data driven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I can't make mistakes without data. Because I do play the game very aggressively, and I can miss a lot if I'm not collecting data.
In my opinion, Dynapac CC900G roller is the best roller on the market for driveway and small parking lot paving contractors. The seismic technology in these rollers is unbeatable for the smoothness and compaction they provide. Take my word for it, or visit Dynapac.com to find a dealer near you.
Hey Blacktop Banner fans, this is Michael with Aquafault. Aquafault is the only permanent repair material for asphalt and concrete that uses water. And installation is simple. Just pour, add water, and tamp. It's that easy. An Aquafault repair can be open to traffic immediately and fully sealed within 24 hours. Visit aquafault.com to learn more.
I work closely with KM International to design what I believe is the best seal coating unit on the market. The Blacktop Banner Edition seal coating unit, available in both 550 and 700 gallon versions. Learn more about the unit by visiting kminternational.com.
Quick startups, fume-free, automatic agitator shutoff, a splash-proof lid, and pumping on demand. These features are essential for any serious asphalt maintenance contractor. Elevate your game with the Crafco SuperShot line of melters by visiting crafco.com today.
Hi contractors, it's Kyla from Wiscoat. We use Stencil Plus for all of our pavement marking stencils. You can save 10% on your stencil order by using code BB10 during checkout at stencilplus.com or by calling 877-372-6055.
In the past year, Jobber has been our CRM of choice at Wiscoat, and it's made our world exponentially better efficiency-wise. For our small seal coating company, it has helped build the solid foundation we can scale from. Jobber is now a sponsor of Blacktop Banter and helps bring this show to you. With this partnership, Jobber is offering an exclusive savings to BB listeners of 20% off for 6 months. To take advantage of this, find the Jobber link in the show description and get to improving your process today.
We can have 4 to 15 employees.
We're seasonal. We were talking about that.
Yeah, yep. we chatted a little bit. 4 to 15. I've also realized that I'd much rather have 4 10s that are at a higher wage and killers than 15 4s. And that's where my fluctuation comes from, right? I'm at a team right now where I can have like significantly less people, but we're doing the same amount of work, and we're still able to grow and do these things. I mean, we are up in we've became a 7-figure company now, prospectively. So that just I try and give that perspective, because a lot of people they'll be like, oh, he's big or he's this, and I feel like our industry gets very misconstrued of what volume is, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
margin. Margin.
Yeah,
right?
And how attainable it is. People will be like, I can't even think about making $100,000 when I'm starting a business. I'm like, we can do that. year one, easy. You know,
Yeah.
we could probably do multi-six.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because we get guys of all flavors that come in, and they come from all different areas, right? Whether they're later a retiree, or they just were an employee for somewhere and jumped in, or whether they're, been doing it. In my story, I did it the same way for 10 years. I was plateaued for 10 years, and then switched some things up, got some mentorship, and next thing I know, we're doing Forex. Then next thing I know, we're doubling that, right? And depending on where you're at and what you charge and what your material cost is, how you job costs, whether you got 4 10s like you were saying, or you got 15 4s, your margin is affected by that. And if you can get it just right, you get really good margin in this industry. So let's talk about that a little bit, because you have taken some guys under your wing now that you got to that mark, 7-figure mark, and you're like, dang, I think I got this thing figured out pretty good. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you've taken guys under your wing. What do you believe qualifies somebody to be an asphalt industry coach? Because it's getting thrown around quite a bit, coaching, right? We have the mastermind group here. I don't ever say coaching. To me, it's you have to be willing to accept that title. So I just tell everybody they're my peers, right? And this is what I know. This is what I don't know. And I can connect you to so-and-so who does know, or I can bring them into our circle and have them talk to us about this type of thing. But it takes a certain type of person to take that title on, because it's a huge responsibility, I believe, to be titled as a coach. But what qualifies somebody to be that? Because I feel there are certain guys who are qualified that call themselves coaches, yourself included, and I feel like there's guys who aren't qualified but still use that title and tell people they will coach them, because we see it right now in the NFL. There's good coaches and bad coaches, buddy. They get fired and some of them get promoted. So tell us a little bit about that and what your perception is on what qualifies somebody to be an asphalt industry coach.
So I would say it's a loaded question, and I've boiled it down personally for myself to 3 things. So it would be self-actualization, realizing oneself's position, right? Are you happy? Are you the person that people should follow? Who is the person that you would follow, and are you following that path?
So somebody who has attained personal happiness through doing what we do here in the asphalt industry, and somebody who also is being guided by somebody farther along, because there's a middle ground, right? Like,
Yep.
You got somebody who's doing 9 figures. They ain't gonna talk to somebody who's just started. That's not how it's gonna work. But they will start to somebody on the come up, right? Who is kind of their protege. So there is a chain. You're right. I like the common phrase nowadays. There's levels of this shit.
Yep.
That's kind of what we're talking about. So keep going. What you believe
self-actualization is the first start, I think, into developing this title, right? Is understanding where you're at and understanding who you want to become and what you're following. For me, there's the physical part of like who I respect, right? If I'm looking at a coach, is this person like physically fit because I come from this self background thing, right? Yep. Is he a healthy person? Is he doing his thing? Is he, does he prioritize this? Is he disciplined, right? And that's a big part of the physicality of this.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, dude. I've seen it a lot lately. Yep. Yeah. I can attribute to that, dude. Look at me a year and a half ago versus now. Now I'm crushing. And a lot of it is because I focus on my physical every day when I wake up.
Yeah.
Right.
Financially, too. Is another second part of that. Financial. Is this person actually like doing the right thing? Is he actually, is he stroking his ego about the money, or is he actually unfolding something? Does he have money? Do I respect the path he's taken? Or is he just kind of like waking up every day and he's like, yeah, man, I'm going to kind of do this thing. Like, I look at that.
I owe the bank. For everything, right? Yeah. Like everything in my life.
And then I look at freedom as another thing that I look for, right? What does this person's life look like? Are they able to do certain things? Or are they stuck and, really, really like in it at all times? Because to me, I believe the end goal of this is to own a complete passive machine that runs itself, right? And I really aspire to that. And then, of course, my family and happiness, and those are, kind of like the foundation.
Yeah, their personal life.
Is this guy a respectable family man? Is he charismatic? All like the typical traits that we would think about of a respectable human.
We get into this to better our situation, right? So I mean, yeah, the guy could be earning 7 figures, but if like his personal life is trash, nah, I'm
Yep.
good.
Yep. I
I'm
don't want to
good.
learn from you. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're only
same.
you're only winning in one area, brother. Like, if you're financially rich but you're spiritually poor, you're still failing in my
You're
in my
still
opinion.
poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're still poor.
So
Yeah.
then I go from that's the self-actualization part that I believe is step one, and then
Yep.
it's self-validation, right? So if we set a core set of habits and daily task, right now it's why 75 hard is so big for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way I live, but there's some things that I guide, and I just like the validation, right? But every single day, if we come back to these things of like, okay, I'm physically fit. You're validating yourself by making sure you're following a diet, by going
Yep.
to the gym, by taking your progress pictures, by doing a set of daily tasks and habits that unfold the future you desire.
Yeah.
Same thing financially. Are you in a financially stable place? Are you progressing? And if you're not in a financially stable place, are you progressing to get to that place, right?
Mm.
Like it's not just, oh, I'm in the same hamster wheel and I think my way is the best and I'm not open to, doing this. Like I
Yeah.
always am like I'm a sponge. Find just 1% better. 1% here, 1% there. Like that changes the course of life drastically. 1% on your bottom line, 1% on material costs. Like the 1% rule, right? Like that's huge.
Yeah.
So I believe self-validation and showing up every single day. Like I don't want a coach that can't show up every single day. If my coach can't do these set of disciplined habits and put in the work and put in the exercises and follow the diet and deliver time with his family and be a good person, I probably don't want to follow that person. And then it goes to self-transcendence. So delivering that person that you've became and actualized and delivering it to the world. So being able to give that guy, I always look at who would I follow, right? And I currently, I do this every year. It's part of my business plan. I'm pointing to my journal over there, people every year. And I'm like, I really like this trait about this person. I really like this trait about this person. I really like this trait. My ideal life is this. If I needed the mentor that I fully and utterly respected, who would that be? Now I try my hardest every single day to create that person and then give that person to the next, right?
Damn. Yeah. No, that makes sense, man. I mean, for us, or for me, and I would say a lot of our peers, like that's what we do. I was fortunate enough to see Ed Milet this last weekend, and I'm like, yup, that checks the boxes, right?
Yeah.
And
Kill it.
and always have, and that's what I want around my bubble. That's my atmosphere. That's my bubble. And I to me, one of the biggest things is motive, right? Like I have coaches, personal coaches that coach me here at BB and at Wiscote and whatnot, and for me, it is always character and motive. Like what is the motive? And there's a part of it, right? You pay for a coach. For a mentor, you might, but you don't always pay for a mentor. But it's always comes down to character. And I will give it time. I might see somebody who does coaching, and it might be 5 years before I hire them. It might be 4 years. Like I need to know over time that they're delivering, because I know, similar to dating, if they started up, they're gung ho, dude. Like, yeah, we're doing it, yeah. And then after a while, like I'm like, where'd they go, right? Or I see things that don't align with what they said, or how they said they were going to live, or how they do live. And for me, I'm like, okay, enough time has shown me that's not my pick, right? I mean, you get kids, recruits, college recruits for football or basketball or whatever, and they get interviewed by a bunch, especially if they're blue chips. And they pick based on the coaches, that is a big influence on them. And if the coach has a great reputation and has shown over time that he strives for excellence and that he shows up and he delivers, that's why the same teams win every year at different aspects, is because they have developed a reputation from these coaches that stick around for 30 years that have lived by this every time. And those kids know, because they're fans of their sport or their industry, similar to us, these are the guys, right? And in our industry, we're starting to see that more as there's more coaches coming out and more coaching going on. Time is going to stand the test of that. But in the meantime, I can tell you're in the attitude, dude, I don't got time to wait. Like it's time to go. I can tell Skyler's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. And I flash back, right? 15, I'm getting old AF, bro. 15 or 18 years. And I was in the same boat. Like, let's go. Like, I want it all. And we didn't have the opportunity to have coaches. We had people that we could grab on as mentors. But it took me 8 years to go to my first conference to find somebody to ask these damn questions to once I made it to a certain level. So I totally agree with that. I think that for us, you have to use your perception, like you were talking about earlier. How do these people talk? How do they act? How do they show up? What are they committed to or not committed to? And even if it is something that's paid, hey, I'm committed to this and I'm going to stick to this even though I have this going on. I need somebody that can balance, because in our industry, you have a family, you have a nonprofit that you're subscribed to, you have a group of peers, a community that you're committed to. I need you to be able to balance all of what you're committed to. And yes, you should hyper focus on some aspects and cut away some of the other things. But if it's something that is supposed to be going towards your version, which I think is similar to my version of success, which is an all-around balanced success life, not just business side, you should be able to juggle all that and stay committed to it to the end for the discipline. And it's tough nowadays, but you have to use your best judgment when you are going to take on a coach, because in my opinion, there are people, and this is my opinion, there are people who should be coaching and people who shouldn't be coaching.
Yeah,
I actually believe I'm in the category that shouldn't be coaching. But I do know and have friends people who I know are badass coaches and should be coaching, and maybe they're not because they're so focused on making sure they have that self-actualization, right, and self-realization in place first. And, there are people, we have a Blacktop Banner call coming up next month, and it's a very young man who has figured out social media at a top level, very young. You don't have to be my age or older or an old person to have an understanding of how it works correctly. Yep. And I think that's an important thing. And for you and what you're doing, I think that's an important thing to be aware of too, it doesn't have to be someone who's done it for 30 years. It can be somebody who has just figured it out, because a lot of our industry is changing. We were talking a little bit, right, about the trends in the supplement and fitness industry. Same thing on our end. It's changing. I'm wearing one right on my head here right now. Those guys are still doing it, some of them by pen and paper. Yep. Well, we don't live in that game, buddy. It's dog eat dog. It's a Shark Tank out there. You need to be efficient. You need to have data. You need to have all the things that you can take to use as an advantage, and some of those guys don't have it. So it's a good blend of both, I think, in this world. You just have to take everything into effect when you're picking a coach, not just does this guy make money, because as we were talking about, that guy could make money. There might be a company, I'm sure you and I probably know one, that makes $2 million gross profit but only takes home 10%, where you might get a guy that does $500K but takes home 50%. Yep. Right? And he's making more than that guy that freaking made $2 million. And that guy's working his ass off. I want the efficiency because I can scale that. Right? Yep. So it takes a lot to go into the choice. And I'm probably the epitome of taking a long time before hiring a coach. But I want to make sure, like you said earlier, I want to make sure you're at a level where you want to make the right steps. That's why you have your admin to give you the data and the direction. Same thing with me. So I want to transition into the final question here today. Or what are the three things, as you've taken on coaching yourself, we can put three things, you can say two things, whatever. I just put top three. You could do more if you want to. But what are the top three things that you think can elevate a person in their asphalt business? Because, you get to, like I told you, I was plateaued for 8 years probably, 6 to 8 years. If I would have known these couple things, it probably would have opened a can of worms a lot sooner for me. What do you think? What are some traits you've seen?
Whew. That's another loaded question, because there's a lot of things that go, I think, into this. I would say, I'm not sure what I would want to put first. I would probably put the right group of peers first. I think that would be first. I really believe that would be first. I struggle between that and data, but without the right group of peers to be able to tell you and understand some of these things, candidly, when we even go to the coaching thing, right? Like self-actualization is, I know there's people that are a lot better at a lot of things than me, right? So, and if
Yeah.
I can learn from them and sharpen my tool, that's the way I can be better at my level to help people, do their thing.
100%.
So, and that's where that group of peers come around. And I always say my term are the right people in your ear. Because if you have a group of doubters and, kind of like haters and questioners and that type of thing around you, any move you make becomes significantly harder. But when you got a group of like, respected, I want to say cheerleading, encouraging peers, like that decision, one of my favorite books is How to Make Shit Happen.
Yep.
That decision of how to act is one of the hardest decisions, I think, for most people. Where on me, I run so flat out, I don't think about the risks sometimes. I'm just like, whatever, I'll figure it out.
Yep.
Like I can do this. Like, and sometimes I do it. I'm like, ooh, man, that was an interesting. But I can always grind my way through it. But some people can't even take the first step to grind their way through it. And when I started getting the right people around me, life began to change a little bit. I started to understand things a little bit deeper. I started to realize when the days I was down, I was still working towards the right goal, and I didn't feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like, so that, and
That
then
helps out.
secondly, I would say data. Because exactly like you're saying, this efficiency thing, and without knowing your numbers and without actually knowing the true business, what are you running off of? Like, you don't know these things. It's a very, very, very hard thing. Like, I mean, we could get deep on data and numbers. Like, I can probably tell you almost any number you could ask me right now. Like, and almost off the top of my head, unless it's like something really odd. But like, like average gallon per 1,000 square, average seal coat per man hour, what my daily overhead is, all of these type of things. Like, I can probably spit off the top of my head pretty darn quick because I am so focused on the data. And really, like, everything. What's your call answer rate? What's your conversion rate? What are all of these numbers? Because without it, like, you cannot make guided decisions. You're still just guessing and throwing darts at the wall. So, and we go back to exactly like you're saying, the logo on your head with people writing things down on chicken scratch. Like, when you throw that piece of paper out and you don't even have a carbon copy as a contractor, and you quoted it for 900, and they call you, they're like, hey, I seen this quote for 500, and you go seal it. Like, you just lost
money. Yeah. And time. You lost money and time. Yeah.
And understanding, like, I'm really, really big on right now, I kicked this off kind of with this data thing, but the unrecognized cost. So just because we have, the CRM subscription and the rent and the truck payment or whatever it is, your admin, your insurance, and those are your operating costs, what are your unrecognized costs? How much are you spending on equipment maintenance and repairs every year? For us, we're $16,000 a year. It's like $66 a day.
Yeah.
That if you don't know these numbers and you don't have the data and you're not figuring this into your overhead cost, you're cutting $15,000 out of your bottom line.
Yeah, and you're taking draws and going on vacation.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're not thinking, "Oh shoot, in 5 months I'm going to be broke if I do that." Cuz you don't even know. You just think, "Well, yeah, it's going to look good." And then these days add up and you're not taking everything into account, right? Imagine getting to the spring broke. Like you have all the equipment, you have all the jobs ready, and then you got to go get a loan to get sealer or crack filler or whatever. It's like,
and even that too, right? Interest, like, what does that look like when you're floating a couple $100,000 worth of projects at a time? It's not uncommon for us to like have hundreds of thousands of dollars floated,
right?
And like, what does that cost you to actually float that money for 60 or 90 days because your payment terms are that? Like, what is the interest you're paying on that? Okay, you have say this on a line of credit, or you have this, or you have cash on hand. What is the value of you tying your cash up? What is the value of you having cash on a credit card? What is the value of you having, cash on a line of credit? Okay, this one's 9%.
All different interest rates.
Yeah, this one's 29%, and this one is, kind of Yeah, 7%, or you're losing the value of being able to spend and do whatever like here.
Yeah.
And what is that unrecognized cost? Because that has to be figured in, because it has to be realized somewhere into the cost of that project. And it's not just like the man hours and the material and the labor burden, like, and recognized overhead. So
Yeah,
that would
we're
probably
both we're both in the north. So like you have 5 months of
150
down,
days.
of down material, downtime to not produce. I hate using the word downtime in off season, but
Yeah.
you're gonna be at a negative than what you were able to produce in the summer. You're gonna be at a minus. It might not necessarily be a negative, but it's a lower rate, and you don't take that into account because you have what you figure the fixed cost all the time, right? So then you have to average that out to try to figure out where you're gonna be. So there's a lot goes into it. I'm going to ask you for the last thing, which we always ask here on BB, is an overall piece of advice. So if you have somebody who's just like, where do I even start with anything? Whether it's life, whether it's whatever, where do we go? What do we do?
Start with anything. Oof.
Yep.
I think it would be, we use like the 18-month plan, right?
Okay.
Figure that out. What is the life you want to unfold in the next 18 months? Start there. Because if you start with the idea of I want to own a business and you start to realize sometimes that business that you wanted to start isn't the business you actually want.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is where, again, where we kind of chatted a little bit of this off camera of what is the business you want? What is the life you desire to have? What are the items you want to acquire? What is the time you want to spend with the family? What is the physical shape you want to be in? What are all those things? And then now you need to just reverse engineer it. Because if you just say, oh, I want to make $1 million, do you truly want to be the person that you have to become to make $1 million?
Yeah.
Like, that man hustles and grinds and does a lot of things and probably sacrifices some time away from his family and might miss a sports game or two. And if the $1 million just sounds good on the board, are you willing to become that person to make that $1 million?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point too. And because you'll make it. But have you planned out every other area of your life on that journey to get there? Because if you didn't, you're leaving it up to the universe. Right? You're leaving it up to the mission to get to $1 million to leave that in whatever condition it wants to leave it in, if you're not taking control of that or think about that one. I love that, man. Where can we find you online, Skyler, if people are going to look?
So Instagram would be Garman Skyler, my name backwards. Facebook, Skyler Garman, and LinkedIn,
Skyler Garman.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Skyler Garman too.
What about ProSeal? What about ProSeal?
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
ProSeal PA on Instagram, and Facebook is ProSeal Asphalt Maintenance. That's getting switched over here a little bit. You've seen the new truck and some of this.
Yeah, dude, it's badass.
A little rebrand and some of those type of things. But yeah, I struggle with that a little bit of what is the actual brand? Is it a personal brand, or is it like you got Blacktop Banter?
You better be building a personal. I don't care what anybody is doing. They better be building a personal brand.
So my main
no matter what.
My main focus now is Skyler Garman as a whole, and then the company as its own brand.
Things change, dude. Everybody should be building a personal brand. I don't care what you're putting on there. Just let it be you. Pictures of the family, things, your insights, where you're at, what you're doing. You should be building a personal brand. I believe everybody should. Skyler, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, man. I wish you nothing but the best, bro. You are like a rocket ship, dude, that I'm keeping my eye on, because you're busting through walls with no caribou, dude. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Pleasure.
Cool. All right, guys. For myself and for Skyler Garman in the beautiful country setting of Pennsylvania, we speak asphalt. Peace. Hey, everybody. Marvin here from Blacktop Banter. And if you enjoy the podcast and what we've been bringing to the industry, you can support us through a one-time or recurring donation at blacktopbanter.com. There we have a support tab. You click that and choose your path from there. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do us a favor and leave a review there for us as well. As always, we speak asphalt, and thanks for your support.